Okay, Juan, I think we're good to go.
Welcome, everyone. We'll be starting here in just a moment. People are being admitted from the wait room. If we just hang on there for about another minute or so, we will begin the panel.
Bienvenidos a todos. Empezaremos dentro de un minuto.
I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone for joining us today. You're attending a webinar on agricultural worker rights and resources available to the agricultural community. This webinar is presented by the New Mexico Coalition of Agricultural Workers and Advocates, the New Mexico Access to Justice Commission, and the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. This webinar is being recorded, and if you registered for this event, you will receive a link to the recording and to all of the materials that the presenters have. I also want to mention that this webinar is also available, is going to be translated. And so I'm going to ask our translator here to give you instructions if you'd like to access the Spanish language communication portal. Denise?
Hay interpretación disponible al español. Para acceder a la interpretación, seleccione el icono del globo al fondo de la pantalla. De la lista que sale, seleccione su idioma preferido, inglés o español. Si está en su teléfono, toque su pantalla para activar los botones al fondo de la pantalla. Seleccione los 3 puntos, luego seleccione interpretación y su idioma de preferencia. Puede seleccionar el botón de Mute Audio si desea escuchar solamente a las intérpretes y no el audio original. Favor de hablar solamente en el idioma que ha seleccionado y de hablar lenta y claramente. Language interpretation is available. To access language interpretation, please click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen that says Interpretation and select your preferred language, English or Spanish. If you're on your phone, tap your screen to activate the buttons at the bottom of the screen. Select the circle with the 3 dots, then select Interpretation and your language of preference. You can select Mute Audio if you would like to only hear the interpreters and not the original audio. Please remember to speak in the language you selected and to speak slowly and clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. So I want to just acknowledge all the folks that were involved in putting this webinar together. And so I'm going to go very quickly through the list here. We have Grace Spulak and Tesha Henderson with the Administrative Office of the Courts. We have Denise Garcia and Emilia Cardenas, who are serving as our translators. Our presenters today include Felipe Guevara from the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty, Ismael Camacho with the Centro Legal Campesino with New Mexico Legal Aid, Lisa Bentacourt with Catholic Charities of Southern New Mexico, Ricardo Trejo with the College Assistant Migrant Program at New Mexico State University, Rosemarie Sanchez with Tierra del Sol Housing Corporation, Diana Magallanes, Ideas for Cooking and Nutrition with the New Mexico State University Cooperative Extension Service, and Maribel Lechuga with the High School Equivalency Program at the University of Texas in El Paso. My name is Juan Abeyta, and I am your moderator for the session today. Excuse me. Okay, I think we're ready to go. I'm stopping share. I'm going to go ahead now and introduce the topic. As I mentioned, we are looking at agricultural workers in New Mexico. And for a lot of us, this is an invisible workforce. There's an estimated 3 million agricultural workers in the United States, and many of them earn annual wages far below the federal poverty level, with the median income of most agricultural workers in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $17,000 per year. This seminar or this webinar will address agricultural worker rights, including compensation, safety, health, and education. And so this is an often misunderstood or neglected area of our agricultural sector. So I think today we hope to bring some awareness of the issues that agricultural workers face, and more importantly, a lot of the resources and organizations that work with that community and can offer assistance and support to agricultural workers. So we hopefully will all learn a lot today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first presenter. This is Felipe Guevara. He's a worker rights attorney with New Mexico Center of Law and Poverty. He works to improve farm workers' pay and working conditions, promote worker protections, such as paid sick leave, and strengthen public enforcement of the minimum wage and overtime laws in New Mexico. Mr. Guevara also supports workers experiencing problems with New Mexico's unemployment insurance system. Before joining the Center on Law and Poverty, he worked as a legal fellow for the Worker Rights Clinic. It's a clinical program of the University of Arizona and with the James E. Rogers College of Law. Mr. Guevara assisted in the supervision of law students enrolled in the University of Arizona Workers' Rights Clinic, such as supervising policy projects aimed at changing statewide and national discourses on employment matters. In his spare time, Mr. Guevara enjoys spending time with his wife and dogs, traveling and supporting local sports teams. Felipe, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Juan. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Does this look good? Great. All right. Thank you, everybody. I have all of my as Juan said, my name is Felipe Guevara, and I'm a workers' rights attorney for the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. As we'll go through this presentation today, we'll be talking about different rights. You'll notice, however, that I have all the presentation slides in both English and Spanish. I'll only be presenting in English since we have interpreters available today, but feel free to ask questions and we can answer them in either language, depending on how you prefer we answer your questions. Today, I'll be focusing on several rights that agricultural workers have. These rights and the different topics that we'll be discussing are immigration status, the difference between employee versus independent contractor and why it matters, the minimum wage, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, and a few other of the topics that you see listed here. I'll be discussing these topics because it's important that all agricultural workers know their rights, but it's also important that those advocates that work with those agricultural workers understand these rights. Many times there's a lot of confusing information or misleading information about what agricultural workers actually have the right to in this country. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. There are there's a lot of confusing information about workers' rights, unfortunately, and that information can sometimes either mislead advocates or agricultural workers. So it's extremely important that we all understand these rights. Another thing that I wanted to mention before I get started today is that many of us today are from the New Mexico Coalition of Agricultural Workers and Advocates in MCAWA. This is a coalition of different organizations that have come together to support agricultural workers and their needs. Let's get started by discussing the immigration status. With regards to workers' rights, employment law protects everyone regardless of immigration status. This is an extremely important thing to note because this isn't true in all areas of the law. But when it comes to employment law, when it comes to the workers' rights that we'll be talking about today, specifically agricultural workers' rights, it applies to everyone regardless of immigration status. Once a worker starts working, they are entitled to rights such as the minimum wage, workers' compensation, and other rights that we'll be discussing today. There are a few distinctions, and there are some areas of the law that that when it does matter if one is documented or not within this country, but I will note those instances, and it will be minimal instances that as you all will see. Now let's move on to the next topic. And this is an extremely important topic and a topic that I tend to start with because it really does matter when someone is classified as an employee versus independent contractor. Oftentimes, workers will be told that they're one or the other. This does not matter. What matters is what we'll be discussing in a few minutes. However, only employees have the rights to minimum wage, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, laws against discrimination, laws against harassment, and retaliation laws. Therefore, this distinction of whether someone is an independent contractor or an employee can be very important because an independent contractor does not carry the same rights or the same protections as does an employee. Now, how do we tell? How do we distinguish when someone is an employee or when someone is an independent contractor? The most important thing to know, and the most important factor here is control. The more control the boss has over the employee or over the worker, the more likely that that worker is an employee. Okay, so let me repeat that because this is the most important thing to understand about this distinction, that the more control the boss has over the worker, the more likely that that worker is an employee. Now, oftentimes, as I just noted, an employer will tell a worker that they're an independent contractor or they're an employee. That does not matter. It does not matter what the worker or what the employer tells the worker that they are. What matters is these factors that we'll be discussing today. Importantly, this is a very simplified version of this analysis. If you dig deeper, this is much more complicated and many other things are considered. However, to quickly determine whether you're an employee or an independent contractor, or at least to start that analysis on your own, always consider the control. Always consider who has more control. If it's the boss, then that person is most likely an employee. Questions to ask when you're determining or when you're thinking about whether you're an employee or an independent contractor are things such as who determines the work, who sets the hours, and who tells the worker what to do. If the employer determines the work, if the employer says to the worker, this is what you'll be doing today, or this is what you'll be doing over the next couple of weeks, then in that instance, because of that level of control that the employer exerts on the worker is most likely an employee. Same thing if the employer sets the hours. If the employer decides how often and when that individual is going to be working, then they are controlling the manner in which that person is coming into that job and the way and the hours that person is putting into the work, which means that that person is likely an employee. The same thing is true if they are directed, if the worker is told how to do their job. And so here, as you can see, if the questions that you answer conclude with the employer having control over the worker or setting some type of hours or determining the work or telling the worker how to do their job, then the worker is most likely an employee. And remember, this is a very important distinction to understand when you go into a job, because if you're an employee, then you have many more rights than if you're an independent contractor. Do not just allow your employer to tell you whether you're one or the other. You should make this analysis on your own and determine whether or not you actually fall within one of these buckets. You should also contact organizations that I'll be discussing or I'll be mentioning towards the end if you have further questions about this issue, as it does get a little bit more complicated the more you have some control by the boss and some control by the work. Now let's talk about the minimum wage. Recently, the minimum wage just went up to $11.50 an hour. Most agriculture workers, regardless of how they are paid, have the right to New Mexico's minimum wage of $11.50 an hour. Now, why do we say regardless of how they are paid? Because many workers are paid in different ways. Some are paid by the week, some are paid in a piece rate fashion. In most instances, regardless of how those individuals are paid, they must be paid $11.50 an hour. Okay. Now, the minimum wage is going up one more time next year, and it will be going up to $12 an hour January 1st of 2023. A very small number of agricultural workers are exempt from the minimum wage, or they don't have the right to minimum wage. However, please contact the organizations, myself, if you have any questions about whether or not you actually have the right to the minimum wage. We like to say that most agricultural workers and a very limited number of agricultural workers, that most agricultural workers do have the right to the minimum wage, but a very limited amount do not. If you have questions about this, please reach out to myself or other organizations that I'll be noting at the end of the presentation. Now, employers who violate the minimum wage are required to pay 3 times the amount of owed wages plus interest. This is an extremely important thing to keep in mind, that if an employer chooses not to pay the correct wages, then their punishment, or the way that the law assesses a fine, if you want to call it that, on the employer is by obligating them to pay 3 times the amount of the wages that they are owed. So it is in every employer's interest to pay their employees the minimum wage that they should be paid. If not, they will have to pay 3 times the amount that they owe, plus interest in some instances. Unemployment insurance is an important security system that was set up many years ago. Agricultural workers, like many different workers, have the right to these unemployment benefits. However, this is one of the areas where workers' status in this country, immigration status in this country, does matter. The requirements to get unemployment benefits are that you are without a job through no fault of your own. So that means that you were fired or that the job just finished. For farm workers in this context, most farm workers become unemployed once the harvest season is over. Once that season is over, they no longer have the jobs that they once had and may be able to apply to unemployment insurance. This does not happen if the person was fired for misconduct or if the person quit from their job. Another requirement of unemployment insurance is that the person is able and available to work, which means that the person has to be willing to take a job that fits their skill set. And the final thing is that you have to have the right to work in the United States. What this means is that the person must have some legal right to work, either through a worker's permit, through some form of visa, residency, or citizenship. And so this is one of those areas, like I mentioned at the beginning, where a worker's citizenship does matter. Now, you can apply for benefits over the phone by calling the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions to the number noted here. This is an important right that we like to talk about often because many farm workers do not know that they actually can qualify for this system, which will give the worker wages or benefits during the time that they're unemployed. Let's move on to another very important security system called workers' compensation. Now, most farm owners with 3 or most employees must provide workers' compensation benefits to all of their workers. This is an important thing to note because farm working, agricultural work, is one of the most dangerous sectors of employment in the country. Many farm workers get injured either through routine work that they're doing or because something occurs on the farm. If a farmer worker is injured on the job, they may be eligible for medical treatment and lost wages through workers' compensation. That's extremely important here, that if a worker is injured, they may get their bills paid and they could get compensation, ongoing compensation even, for wages that they're unable to make because of that injury. One very important thing to do under this system is to notify your employer of your injury as soon as possible. This is one of those areas of the law where you must tell your employer that your injury occurred so that you're protected through this workers' compensation system. If you do not tell your employer and later on try to get workers' compensation, it may complicate your claim and it may make it very difficult for you to actually get the benefits that you require. The Workers' Compensation Administration number is there. If you have any questions about this area of the law or about this benefit system, please reach out to the organization, to myself or the organizations I'll be discussing toward the end. Now let's briefly talk about discrimination. This is another area of the law that can be very complicated, but to simplify it and to make it easy, it's important to understand that an employer is not allowed to treat an employee differently based on race or color, sex, national origin, language, religion, disability, age if over 40, and pregnancy. Okay, so an employer cannot treat someone differently based on these characteristics. If someone, let's say, is from Mexico, an employer cannot say, I do not hire people from Mexico, because that would be discriminating against that individual based on their national origin. Or they cannot say, I'm going to pay people from Mexico differently, because that, again, would constitute discrimination through national origin. One important thing to mention here is that these are the characteristics that an employer cannot use to discriminate against an individual against, but they can treat someone differently for other reasons. Oftentimes, I will get calls from workers who are very angry about something that happened and something that may be unjust, right? For instance, a worker may call saying, I painted my hair and my employer doesn't like the hair color that I have and is threatening to fire me. I think that's discrimination. In most instances, that would not be a discrimination because hair color is not a protected characteristic. It may be unjust for the employer to treat you differently simply because you changed your hair color or because you chose a different perfume for that day, for instance, but that does not mean that it amounts to discrimination. It only amounts to discrimination if the employer is treating you differently based on one of the characteristics noted on this slide. Sexual harassment is a section that falls within the discrimination laws, and it includes offensive insults about a person's gender, unwanted sexual advances, or vulgar or sexual comments. Sexual harassment can happen to both men and women from either sex. It is, like we note here, when someone is treated or made to feel uncomfortable based on unwanted sexual advances, comments, or offensive insults. It's important to try to know that this is happening to an employer if it's happening to you, okay? Under the sexual harassment laws of the United States, you must tell your employer of the behavior that's occurring. However, if your employer is not going to do anything about that behavior, or if your employer is the one that's harassing you, then you have other means of trying to address that situation through federal agencies that investigate employers that are charged with sexual harassment or that allow sexual harassment to occur. Another important thing is that sexual harassment does not need to only happen from your employer. It can also happen from other co-workers or even from customers to your business. It is the employer's responsibility to protect all of their workers from sexual harassment, and therefore you should tell your employer if possible. If not, you should report that behavior to the relevant agency. Now, it is important to understand that it is illegal for employers to fire or in any way discipline an employee for demanding their rights, such as minimum wage, or for informing other employees of their rights, including rights discussed in this presentation. Okay, that's extremely important, and it's one thing that I often will note to advocates, that workers, when they assert their right, are further protected in doing that by retaliation laws. An employer cannot treat someone differently for them demanding a minimum wage, for demanding that the employer investigate some discrimination that they're experiencing, for asking for workers' compensation. If you have a right to something, your employer cannot treat you differently or fire you or discipline you simply because you asked for that right. Now, retaliation can take many different forms. It can look like discipline, demotions, salary reductions, a cut in hours, a job or shift reassignment, or even termination. Okay, so it can be any of these things. If you are treated differently for asserting a right, then that is considered retaliation, and the employer will have to sort of answer for the violation of those laws as well. Who to contact? As I've mentioned several times throughout the presentation, there are several organizations that you want to contact if you are experiencing either discrimination, sexual harassment, or you want to make your rights, or you want to enforce your rights. You can contact the Department of Workforce Solutions at the number at the top. You can also contact the Centro Legal Campesino, Somos un Pueblo Unido, the New Mexico Immigrant Law Center, and the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. All these organizations work with different populations of immigrants and or workers that are experiencing some type of problem within their job. If you have an issue, call one of these organizations. This presentation will be sent out at the end of today's webinar. So you're happy to move to the end of the presentation to find these numbers, or you can give me a call and I'd be happy to refer you in that direction. Thank you so much for your time today. And I apologize for the brief interruption at the beginning. Oh, sorry.
All right, our next speaker is Ismael Camacho. Ismael is a staff attorney with New Mexico Legal Aid. He has received his BA from the New Mexico State University and his doctorate in jurisprudence in University of New Mexico in 1997. He has been a New Mexico State Bar member and an attorney since October of 1997. His practice developed over 17 years of experience working on behalf of farm workers and 13 years of experience working with the Office of the New Mexico Attorney General. Ismael, I'll turn it over to you for your continued presentation.
Thank you. And I just wanted to briefly say that in addition to that, New Mexico Legal Aid also does most of the things that were highlighted in Felipe Guevara's presentation. So if you have any questions, we could also help. We are obviously client driven, so we represent clients who may have legal issues that are related to that. In addition to that, we also provide representations to migrant and seasonal agriculture workers. And therefore, there's something called the Migrant Seasonal Workers Protection Act, which is commonly referred to as the Agricultural Workers Protection Act, that also provides some rights to farm workers. Nonetheless, I decided to focus in on today's presentation on field sanitation law. And at this time, I'll try to share my screen, see if I can do this correctly this time. Let's see. So again, I work for the New Mexico Legal Aid. In English, they refer to it as the Farm Worker Project. That's our website. And in Spanish, we always, since 1979, we've always referred to our program as the Centro Legal Campesino. And we provide free legal assistance if you're eligible for our services. The presentation contains general information and therefore does not apply to every worker in all circumstances. This is my disclaimer. To determine how and when it's applicable, consult with an attorney. In addition, the presentation is not a substitute for attorney's advice. The field sanitation, I created an outline. Their field sanitation is derived from federal regulations, which are codified at the CFR, and also state regulations that are codified in the New Mexico Administrative Code. They apply to agricultural workers who are engaged in hand labor operations. That is, those individuals primarily that work in what they call row crops, such as chili, lettuce, onions, cabbage, pumpkins, watermelons, things of that nature. And it applies to any farm worker when they work more than 3 hours per day. And toy facilities are required for every 20 workers or a fraction thereof. And employers, an employee should be allowed reasonable opportunity to use them during the workday. They also need to ensure that the field sanitations provide privacy and that the doors are able to be closed and locked, and that they must be adequately ventilated. They also should be operated and maintained in clean and sanitary conditions and within close proximity to each other. They're required to be located within 1/4 of a mile, or about 0.4 meters for each worker, or at the closest point of entry. That is, for example, say that it's unfeasible to have the toilets within 1/4 of a mile because either there's a problem for entering into the field, then you have to locate it at the closest point of entry, which means just maybe where they actually have the drive-through. Another important factor, especially during the summers, is that they're be provided with portable water for drinking and hand washing. The water should be placed in locations that are easily accessible to workers, shall be suitable, cool, and in sufficient amounts, and should meet the employee's need and consideration of nature of work. For example, air temperature and humidity. Again, during the, if you're spending any time in the southern part of New Mexico, we're known to have 100-degree plus 30 days straight. So it does get a little bit on the hot side. The other thing is that obviously the water should be kept covered, and the container should be cleaned and refilled daily. They should be oops, not sure what happened there. Go back if I can. Again, there should be the show should be provided with one-use cups or by fountain and not in common cups or dippers. Hand washing facilities are also very important, especially now during the COVID outbreak. That would enable them to clean and the should be maintained in clean and sanitary conditions. Federal regulation also requires soap and single-use towels to dry hands, and wash disposal should not cause unsanitary conditions. Employers are required to inform employees of the importance of good hygiene practices and to encourage employees to use water and facilities for personal sanitation. Inform employees that good hygiene practices are important to minimize health-related illnesses, to disclose communicable diseases, for example, COVID, and also to help them prevent urine retention and pesticide exposure. I will note that when the COVID outbreak initially started in 2020, I do conduct outreach to the actual sites. And during one of my outreach events, I actually went to a farm that had within the toilet facility, they actually had a poster that said basically, make sure that you wash your hands, after the use because of COVID. So that was something that was very good on a good policy that they enacted on their own. There is this section that requires you to inform them. So I thought that was very good on their part. And here's my contact information. That's my name. And the first number here that appears, the 506-0338, that's actually my cell number. I encourage anyone who wants to get a hold of me to call that number. The second number that appears is my direct line. I don't encourage that as much because I do actually go out quite a bit to the fields. And so obviously if you call my office, I more than likely won't be there. I'll be doing outreach. In addition, you can also contact the New Mexico Enforcement Environment. That's their phone number and also their website. They also have if you click on one of the websites, you can actually file a complaint. It's important to note that there is no private cause of actions for a lack of field sanitation laws, a violation of the EPA or OSHA. However, under the Migrant and Seasonal Workers Protection Health, that may provide workers with greater extension that may cover, for example, failing to disclose health and safety concerns. At this time, I thank you very much to everyone for attending and also for your attention to this presentation. I'll try to stop sharing my slide. And then let me see if I can toggle back.
Ismael, if you can do the stop screen share button, that will allow the next presenter to share their screen. And our next presenter is going to be Lisa Bentacourt. Lisa is with Catholic Charities of Southern New Mexico, excuse me. And she serves as Special Programs Director for Victim Assistance and Pre-Prosecution Diversion Program. She's worked with the 3rd Judicial District Attorney's Office, the Sandoval County Area Director, the New Mexico Department of Labor. She's been a Deputy Court Administrator. She has 10 years of experience working with nonprofits, and she holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and organizational behavior from New Mexico State University and certification as a family law mediator. Lisa is responsible for developing strategies to empower immigrants and members of underrepresented and marginalized communities to improve the quality of life for New Mexicans. Lisa.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Bentacourt. I'm the community organizer for Catholic Charities. I just began this new role about a month ago. I apologize if I don't know everything, but I will be glad to help you if I can answer your questions at the very end. Catholic Charities was founded in 2004 and is chartered by the Catholic Diocese of Las Cruces to be a provider of social, legal, and economic assistance to people in need in southern New Mexico, regardless of their faith, belief, gender, sexual orientation or identity, ethnicity, immigration status, or cultural background. Catholic Charities is a nonprofit corporation. A little bit about what we do. Catholic Charities is primarily a legal services program, immigration program. However, we do help people who need financial assistance. We help out in emergency situations with rent, food, utilities. And so if you know of anybody that is currently, behind on their rent, mortgage, needs help with utility bills, because I know we're still in the pandemic, please have them call our office and we will do an initial application over the phone. We take these cases on a case-by-case basis. So just call in and we can see if we can help you. Let me see, our organization currently employs 11 staff members. We serve 10 southern counties in New Mexico. We have an office in Roswell also, and one in Las Cruces. Our working hours are 8 to 5. So please give us a call. We'll set up an appointment for you. The main emphasis of Catholic Charities is immigration legal services. We provide high quality, low cost, and pro bono legal immigration services. Some of the types of cases that we help clients in are naturalization, citizenships, family-based petitions, the green card renewals, DACA, the U visas, which are for crime victims, the T visas for trafficking victims, VAWA, which are the visas for victims of domestic violence. We also help out with what's called an SIJS, which is a special immigrant juvenile status. And this is for children who have been abandoned, abused, or neglected by one or both parents. We offer defense and deportation, asylum and defense of deportation, and also bond hearings. We receive funding from the Mexican consulate, so we are able to provide free legal services for the majority of victims of crime and domestic violence. And also for the SIJS, which are the special immigrant juveniles who are Mexican nationals. For all other services, we charge a flat fee, which is more reasonable than most attorneys. Our fees are usually about 10% of what an immigration attorney will charge you to be able to assist you in the immigration process. We charge a $50 consultation fee. And a lot of times we can waive this fee if you do not have $50. Just call our office. We have special grants that will assist in paying the $50 fees. Before we open a case, we will do an initial consultation. We see if you qualify for the immigration benefits you're applying for, and we explain the cost and all the requirements to you. You can either call our Las Cruces office or our Roswell office and schedule a consultation. We also partner up, and since I'm new in this capacity, we are starting to partner up more and more with different agencies and that assist immigrants. We will be putting on presentations throughout all southern New Mexico in the different areas, Chaparral, Anthony, Hatch, Deming, and to inform everyone And also on staff, we will have, when we do these presentations, we will also have our staff there ready to assist you. And I think that is all. Thank you very much for your time. Please feel free to give us a call. You have our brochure, in our brochure there, our website is there, so you can go ahead and go ahead and send me an email, and we'll be glad to help you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next presenter is Ricardo Trejo. He's the Recruitment and Outreach Coordinator for the NMSU College Assistant Migrant Program. Ricardo was born in Deming, New Mexico, but was raised on both sides of the US-Mexico border. As a seasonal farm worker, Ricardo grew up alongside with his family working in agriculture. With the help of NMSU Camp, he attended NMSU and earned a bachelor's in business administration in 2014. His academic spirit led him to study abroad in Amsterdam. He was involved in student life and gained experience going back to his community through volunteerism. In 2017, Ricardo served as the AmeriCorps Vista volunteer for Roadrunner Food Bank, a nonprofit organization that works with local communities to help end food hunger. He earned his master's in public administration from NMSU in 2020 and is currently working as the recruitment and outreach coordinator for CAMP program. His work experience and travels and continued collaboration with local communities has propelled him to help local and rural communities across southern New Mexico. Welcome, Ricardo.
Muchas gracias, Juan. Thank you so much, Juan, for the invitation and for having me. I hope, can you all hear me? Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I have a presentation here. And can you all see that as well? Yes, awesome. So, muchas gracias a todos. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. You guys can see this top screen, right? See, okay. So my name is Ricardo Trejo. I am the recruiter and outreach coordinator for the College Assistance Migrant Program at New Mexico State University. So NMSU Camp is a federally funded program that supports migrant and seasonal farm working students. NMSU Camp has been at this university for 20 years now, since 2002. This is Camp's 20th year anniversary. So we're very excited here on campus to be able to be here in the community for 20 years. I myself was a part of this program, so I'm very happy and honored to be working now with the CAMP program. So CAMP, the main purpose of CAMP is to support these migrant and farm working students to attend college. The main goal is to recruit, retain, and graduate the students from New Mexico State University with a bachelor's degree. So we receive funding directly from the U.S. Department of Education through the Office of Migrant Education. There are other programs such as the Migrant Education Program that serve students from K through 12 and the High School Equivalency Program that serves students in order to obtain their GED. NMSU Camp also receives funding from the university, from the research public service projects as well. So all of this funding that we receive is meant to support students. The way that we support students in their effort for higher education is we provide them with a scholarship to attend college. This scholarship will help them pay for their tuition, their books, and we also provide students with academic support. So we ensure that students have the necessary academic support, such as math tutors, English tutors, so that they feel comfortable here in college and they have a good system for them to be successful in school. Each year, we recruit 30 students into the program, so we have enough funding for 30 students each year. As the recruiter for the program, I help identify and assist students to be admitted into the university and into the program. So as a recruiter, I help students through the application process. If anybody knows of a family that is a migrant or seasonal farm worker, please let them know that I'm here to help them in that process to enter the university. Since 2002, CAMP has served 534 students, and we have a 75% retention rate. That includes everybody who has graduated and our students who are currently enrolled. And approximately 70% of these students remain in the state of New Mexico, which is super important because they give back to our local communities. So CAMP is a transformative program. Not only do we support students financially and academically to be in higher education, but we ensure that they also have a job after they graduate from high school, from the university. And also, there's a lot of success stories that have come out of the CAMP program. There's currently 2 students who have obtained their PhDs in mechanical engineering. We've had outstanding students graduate from the program. We showcase students through our Tuesday Talks program. And we also provide internships for students, a medicinal plant internship and a bridge inspection internship. So we work closely with the university so that we can provide these resources and opportunities to students. Looking forward, we're looking to increase or to open our internship program with organizations, provide more technology, equipment, supplies to students, and continue assisting them financially through applying through different grants as well. So in spite of COVID, we were still able to help students virtually. So in 2020, we were able to transition our services to online. Right now, we still offer online tutoring for those who need it. But we also provide in-person assistance here in our office at New Mexico State University in Milton Hall, room 16. So we've been able to manage the transition to online, and we have a picture here to kind of show we used to do a lot of workshops with students to ensure that we kept engaging with them throughout the year. So I'm very honored and happy to be here this evening in support of the farm working population. Services such as the ones that Felipe, Ismael, and Lisa provided are very helpful to our farm working community. I hope you all understand how important our farm working population is in this region. I'm very honored to be a part of it myself as well. Thank you so much, Juan, for your time and attention. Thank you, everybody. If you all have any questions, I can provide my contact information. My name is Ricardo Trejo. I am the recruiter for the CAMP program.
Gracias, Ricardo. Thanks so much for that information. I'm going to move on to our next presenter, Rosemarie Sanchez with Tierra del Sol Housing Corporation. Rosemarie was raised in the Mesilla Valley and is a graduate of Gadsden High School. She knew that education was key for a better life and earned her bachelor's and master's in education from NMSU and continues to encourage other students to pursue education after high school. While at New Mexico State University, she was coordinated all student services for the College of Engineering and developed a program called MITE, M-I-T-E, the Minority Introduction to Engineering, which encouraged minority students to pursue degrees in engineering or STEM-related fields. She is a board member of La Clínica de la Familia, which provides healthcare for all family members in Doña Ana County and works with farm workers outreach to ensure that they are aware of the services that La Clínica offers. Rosemarie, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, good. Okay, Felipe is going to be my person that will help me with the PowerPoint. So I guess what I'll do, Felipe, I'll just kind of wave my hand and that'll give you a cue to go on to the next slide. Just to let you know, this is a picture of what we're all about. It's all about the farm workers. It's a beautiful picture of the Mesilla Valley and the Organ Mountains. So we'll go on to the next slide. Tierra del Sol Housing Corporation was started in 1973 specifically for farm workers to help them with their housing. We provide and assist affordable housing for persons, and what is key here is that we're looking at low income levels or moderate incomes for qualifications. This PowerPoint is about 2 or 3 years old, and it shows that we have completed 5,500 units of affordable housing However, by now it's increased quite a bit more. So know that these numbers are accurate 2 or 3 years ago, but they have increased since then. And there's been over 4,000 homes that have been rehabilitated. We provide loans and grants for farm workers to build their home, or if they already own a home, we will help them with funding so that they can improve the home if there's repairs that are needed for the roof or plumbing or whatever. This is showing you that we have developed 1,250 units in 25 rental properties and 15 communities in New Mexico and West Texas. So we're found throughout New Mexico and West Texas. We had 8 farm worker housing built in, again, New Mexico and West Texas. And we provide technical assistance for the farm worker housing and their infrastructure funding. Next. This is a regional map. And as you can see from New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana to the left, which is the western part of the United States, is the region that we belong to. Although we're based in New Mexico and West Texas, if there are other people in the other areas, the other states of this region, there will be places like Tierra del Sol, groups like this, organizations that can help the farm workers. So if you know of others in other states, encourage them to try and find these programs to help them. And I'm just going to go out on a limb. If you do know someone and they're just lost, they don't know how to access other groups or other organizations, let them be in touch with either myself or with the office, and we'll see what we can do. But this gives you an idea as to the areas that Tierra del Sol is in the region that we provide services for. Here it says that we collaborate and work in partnership with Colorado Rural Housing Development Corporation. This is similar to what Tierra del Sol Housing Corporation is doing. However, it's in Colorado, but we partner with each other to try and see if we can receive the funding and then apply it for the either construction, occupancy, or for property management. Okay, next. These are the apartments that you'll find in Anthony, New Mexico. You'll see where they look very new, but they are 2 stories. So sometimes you might want to kind of keep that in consideration when looking for an apartment. And if you want to go ahead and go with a 2-story or look for something on the 1st floor. This one is an example of only 1 level of the apartments. And this is in Dalhart, Texas. I did say that we also help the West Texas area. This is near Lubbock. So this would be another area in West Texas that we work with. These are the apartments in Las Cruces. They are 2-story, Paseo del Oro. And you will see the top picture shows the office for the apartments in West El Paso. These are the Presidio Dolores apartments. And in this building, every apartment complex will have a laundromat. There will be the office for the apartment complex. And then there will be other rooms where you can have, maybe we'll have Tierra del Sol might come in, Catholic Charities, whoever could come in and give a presentation, or other social services can come in and meet with the farm workers and their families in this building. The bottom right-hand corner shows a little playground area. Whenever there is an apartment complex that is built, there is a designated area for the children to have playground areas for them to feel safe and to have a good time. So this is always part of an apartment complex, what they can do, the services they provide for the children. Who can apply for the program? Well, you need to be qualified and show that you would be able to apply for a loan. Who can apply? Of course, the farm workers. You have associations of farm workers and nonprofit organizations or other farmers. And if they are going to provide some sort of housing for farm workers, they could apply for a loan to Tierra del Sol Housing Corporation if it is specifically for farm workers. So this is an area that can also be looked into for loans. The eligible areas, you'll find apartment complexes or the housing complexes either in town, in cities, or in the rural areas. And you can use the funding whenever you do receive a loan for the construction of the home, for improvements, if you need to have repairs done. And then how can you use this funding? Well, obviously, you want to either buy or improve the land. If there's any money left over and the farm workers have budgeted well, and if it's a possibility, they can use the funding to buy household furnishings, or even to start to repay the 1% interest that is applied to their loan. So this is what it can be used for. Excuse me. Who can live in the rental housing? Obviously, the farm workers and their families. And this is to include fish and oyster farms and on-farm processing. Although I don't know of fish and oyster farms in New Mexico. I could be wrong, but anyway, they would also be included. Other people that would qualify, of course, would be the retired farm workers or those who might be disabled. You need to be a US citizen or be a permanent resident. And again, we go to the low income qualification. And then what kind of funds are available? Low interest loans, 1%. I don't know that you would ever find a better loan at all with a 1% interest rate. And grants are based on need and cannot exceed more than 90% of the project cost. Obviously, we know that a loan needs to be paid back. A grant, but it does require some strong qualifications. A grant does not need to be paid back. The loans are for 33 years at 1% interest. So you have 33 years to pay back the loan. There's a lot of demand for this kind of funding and for homes and for apartments. So we will need to look at the first come, first served basis. But if anybody is interested, you want to be sure and start working on your packet. Like everything else, it just involves a lot of paperwork. In today's world, I guess you can refer to paperwork as completing any sort of documents or forms on your computer and then hitting the send button. But everything does require a two-step process. What does a typical rental look like? Usually an area of about 5 acres will have about 40 units, 40 apartments. They range in size from 950 to 1,400 square feet, and they can be for 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms. It just depends on what's available and what the needs of the farm worker are. It will have a building set aside for laundry and a community building, or to support other kind of social services. If there's going to be a presentation or a talk, this is where it would happen at the apartment complex. This is what they refer to as a mud room. As you enter the apartments, you'll find a mud room, and you know, when we're working out in the fields, we might get real muddy, or this is an area that you can kind of clean up a little bit as you enter the apartment, which I think is a plus because of the hard work that the farm workers are involved with. This is a typical kitchen that you will find in an apartment. And then on the lower right-hand corner is the interior of an apartment complex. Not all of the apartment complexes have this design. This one does, and it shows you how your front door will open into the interior of the apartment complex. We are trying to have the apartments be high energy as possible. Paseo del Oro and El Camino Real apartments are classified as being high energy efficient. Paseo del Oro is here in Las Cruces in town, and El Camino Real apartments are in Hatch. You know, we want to go ahead and see if we can have a net zero capacity with these places where eventually we won't be using any electricity or gas. Everything will be self-sustaining. Net zero energy living community. I believe these are the apartments in Hatch. You can see the solar panels on top of the roof. And this is the direction that we're going. Again, let's use solar energy. Another energy that we can use in New Mexico is wind energy. And unfortunately here in Las Cruces and in New Mexico, in the southern part, the windy season is here and we get a lot of strong winds, but we can have that wind energy generated to take to go ahead and reach that net zero capacity. More solar panels. More solar panels. This is the direction that we're going. At the different apartment complexes, you'll see where they also have different kind of maintenance workers, depending on what the problem is. But this is another service that is provided at the apartments. This is the building that I'm talking about that has the laundromat, has the office for the apartment complex, and then you have other rooms in here. So you can use it, of course, obviously as the laundromat if you're going to have meetings. Maybe if you're going to have a little gathering for a family, you know, of a family or two families. But this building will be found at all apartment complexes. On the bottom, you'll see another, it's probably the same building, I believe. Yes, it is. It's the same picture of the one previous that has the solar panels. Again, this is what we're trying to do. These are the Organ Mountains that we are so proud of here in Las Cruces. So many of you that work here or are from here, we know that we're blessed to have these mountains here. And if those of you that haven't ever been here, we encourage you to come out. They're beautiful mountains. You can go out for a hike. It's a great recreational area. But if you have questions, we do have the office in Las Cruces. Here's the phone number. We have an office in Anthony, and we have one in El Paso. So you can call these numbers if you think there might be a possibility or you're interested in applying for a loan or a grant. You want to look into the possibility of a rental. This is the number that you want to call, or drop by if you have the means. If it's a possibility, come on by the office. We're located on Idaho here in Las Cruces, and you have the addresses for the other places. That is pretty much what Tierra del Sol does for housing, specifically for the farm workers. There's other areas that we're also involved in, but today, this is what we're focusing on. So thank you, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. And we're hoping that this is a big plus for the farm workers and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemarie. We're going to move right along. And by the way, if you have questions, we have had several folks post questions. We will get to those questions as soon as we finish all the presentations. So we're closing up now. Diana Magallanes is the program supervisor for New Mexico State University ICANN program. That's Ideas for Cooking and Nutrition. She's worked at the Cooperative Extension agent in Doña Ana County for the last 15 years. She oversees the ICANN program, where nutrition educators teach basic nutrition for youth and adults. The ICANN program is funded by the USDA Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance SNAP program. Her personal focus aligns with the mission of ICANN to inspire families to make healthy food and lifestyle choices and to create healthy, friendly communities. Outside of work, Diana enjoys spending time with her family and tending to her garden of flowers and vegetables. As an alum of NMSU, Diana graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Family and Consumer Sciences and a Master of Arts degree in Education. Diana, I'll turn it over to you. You are on mute, Diana.
Thank you. Let me get this presentation up. Hello, everybody. We're happy to be here with you today to share information about our program and to learn and listen from the agencies and programs that you have presented to us. It's been very interesting. Thank you. I am with Ideas for Cooking and Nutrition. In New Mexico, we call our program ICANN. I'm Diana, who supervises 6 educators, nutrition educators in Doña Ana County. And my colleague, Marisa Van Dommelen, is going to present also with me. She's the program manager at NMSU in our state office. All right, so we have the ICANN umbrella in New Mexico. And what that does is speak to the 2 grants that we worked under, and that is the FDEP grant on one side of the umbrella, and we have the SNAP Ed grant on the other side. We serve 22 counties in New Mexico, and our target population is adults. For FDEP, it's adults who have children or they provide care for children. We also have series-based education for adults and youth. We come into the schools and we capture we say that they're a captive audience now that they're back in school after some time off and some Zooming due to COVID. But we're lucky to be back in some of the schools here in Gadsden and Las Cruces, teaching our classes face-to-face, and we continue to do Zoom classes as well. The adults we capture through different agencies with whom we collaborate, and we have several partners in Las Cruces and Doña Ana County, and we're striving always to learn about other partners to work with. On the SNAP-Ed side of our ICANN program or umbrella, we also serve individuals who are eligible for SNAP benefits. We present our classes in English and Spanish. We'll talk about that later. We do standalone lessons on the SNAP-Ed side. So if somebody called today and said, hey, I need for you to give a class tomorrow on maybe limiting sugar intake or salt intake or whatever the interest may be, they're easier to get in because they can do one-time standalone lessons. And so that's a lot of fun to go in and out. And then we also have series-based education. The participants received a certificate for completing as many sessions as either program requires. So that's always kind of a nice celebration for us to see them get. It can be presented, that certificate. A lot of individuals have expressed that they present it when they're applying for work maybe, because we do teach food safety and also the proper handling of kitchen knives for cooking. And then I'm going to have, I want to add before I put Marisa on or hand it over to Marisa that our community education programs and cooperative extension, I can include it certainly, are free for any participant that wants to come. We have several ways for you to be in touch with us. FNEP on one side of our umbrella is always, is only offered through Bernalillo County and Doña Ana County. But SNAP-Ed exists in the other counties, each of the other counties in New Mexico. Marisa?
Thank you, Diana.
Sure.
And yes, like Diana said, we're in 22 counties across New Mexico with SNAP-Ed, and I oversee a lot of the curriculum. I make sure that all of our materials are in English and Spanish. We do have a great population of our Spanish speakers. And the ICANN is because of COVID, we were able to turn to Zoom and different platforms to be able to teach our classes. So people that are in a county that we're not in, like Mora or San Miguel, if they have access to Zoom, they can definitely join the Zoom classes that we advertise on our social media. I work closely with updating our websites as well as our Facebook pages. Some of our classes are also hybrid, where we start in person and then sometimes due to weather or due to high cases of COVID in the last year, they will do the resume in either platforms that we have our educators working on. The participants do receive an incentive as well as a recipe. So one of the things that's different about our classes, they are a nutrition-based education and healthy lifestyles. It also includes a recipe demonstration at the end of the class. Not always with a hybrid, but most of our classes, that's one of the things that participants look forward to, is learning how to prepare an item that they haven't cooked before, they're not familiar with. And so a lot of our outreach does happen at health fairs, especially at La Clínica de Familia, Ben Archers, those centers that do provide services for our migrant workers. And they do sometimes include food tasting if our counties allow it during that time. And then we also provide incentives, which our participants really enjoy, that go with the lesson. Like Diana already mentioned, we do teach in schools and churches. Right now in Bernalillo, we are providing support to some churches that provide refugee support. And we do have interpreters in different languages there as well. Besides the Spanish, we have some refugees that are from Afghanistan and things, and different countries right now there. And we also provide in Bernalillo County, in the summer, we have a series class that is provided at the Chispas Farm, which is located in the metro area. And so we're working with local farmers to provide classes outside in the local farms as well. And I did include our website. You can access ICANN at nmsu.edu. That will walk you through a lot of our Facebook social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Pinterest. What you will see when you access it is a way to sign up for classes, free classes. We also have a newsletter. We have a Seat to Supper class, which is offered in English and in Spanish. This is a self-paced class that is offered. But once you like us on Facebook or any type of social media, you will get reminders about when we do, like on Thursdays, once a month, we have question and answers with Sally Cassidy, who runs our ICANN Seat to Supper. In the summer, we're also able to provide series gardening classes, basic gardening classes, and sometimes we provide seeds that we are able to mail as long as you live in our state of New Mexico. If you go to icann.nmsu.edu/remote, you can access some of our classes, some of our videos that include activities, a recipe demonstration, like Diana had mentioned, will be hopefully being able to present a video as well. So, and a lot of times, sometimes people don't realize that when you're looking at, here on the link, if you were to just click on it with your right click and open, you could actually access those, as well as when people are accessing the social media. Sometimes just the fact that it's bolded and highlighted, if you click on it, those links will directly take you to our more programming, and you can access Facebook through our websites. Next one.
Okay, that's me.
And because of COVID, like Diana said, we are in Doña Ana County and Bernalillo as our biggest counties with FNEP. And but we do have an 81877 number, 1-877-993-3637. Those messages actually come to here at New Mexico State University in my office. And we do return phone calls within 24 hours to let people know, to connect them to the county that they're trying to reach, or if we have programming going in a senior center or even in apartment complexes. We do provide some classes across our communities in different locations, so we connect you there. And QR codes has been something that has been useful for our program with social media, because the smartphones, especially iPhones, you just aim your camera to it and it will take you directly to sign up for some of our classes. For Android, sometimes you do have to download an app that is for QR codes that will link you to that as well. So we are trying to do as much technology advances as we could within our program to make sure that people can access our services. Our next one is to thank you all for having the ICANN program be part of your presentation. We're happy to be able to continue to provide services to our population across New Mexico. And we have phone numbers to definitely reach out.
I won't click the next slide because it'll go into our video. Should I just stop sharing, Felipe or Juan?
Yes, we're getting close on time. So I have one more presenter that we want to include. Thank you, Diana and Marisa.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us. There's,
and we have one more presenter here, Maribel Lechuga. She is the Educational Outreach Coordinator with University of Texas El Paso HEP program. Maribel is a daughter of Mexican parents who were farm workers in New Mexico for the chili harvest. She was born and raised in Mexico and later earned her bachelor's in mathematics from La Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez. She was a teacher for 12 years and then migrated to El Paso, Texas, where she continued working in several educational vocations. She has been working for the HEP program for over 2 years and feels blessed to aid many farm workers further their education, which leads to opening many opportunities for them. Maribel.
Hi. Okay, can you see my presentation?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, good afternoon. Like Mr. Abeyta said, my name is Maribel Lechuga. I'm a recruiter with the High School Equivalency program, and thank you for letting me participate in this meeting. Mi nombre es Maribel Lechuga. Mi presentación estaba para hacerla en inglés y en español, entonces voy a seguir el formato que ya lo había tenido. Okay. HEP is an academic program designed to meet the special needs of migrant and seasonal farm workers in obtaining their high school equivalency certificate. This program is funded by the U.S. Department of Education and is located in the University of Texas at El Paso, which helps students prepare their college experience. Nuestro programa HEP está diseñado para satisfacer las necesidades de trabajadores agrícolas de temporada y temporales en busca del certificado de equivalencia de high school o lo que viene siendo la preparatoria. Nuestro programa trabaja con fondos federales del Departamento de Educación de Estados Unidos y está localizado en la Universidad de Texas, lo que nos ayuda a que nuestros estudiantes tengan una experiencia universitaria. We have two goals. Our main goal is for our students entering, completing, and succeeding in a course of study to receive their high school equivalency certificate. With the purpose of entering and succeeding in the post-secondary education, training program, upgraded employment, or the military career. Tenemos dos metas en nuestro programa. La primera y la que es más importante para nosotros es que nuestros estudiantes se inscriban, participen exitosamente en el programa para obtener el certificado de equivalencia de high school, pero nuestro trabajo no termina ahí. También les ayudamos a que se inscriban y participen exitosamente en una institución universitaria, en una escuela vocacional, que consigan un mejor empleo o que entren a las Fuerzas Armadas. Esto es para ayudarles a nuestros estudiantes que sepan que no nada más con el GED ya termina la ayuda o el proceso que ellos puedan hacer, sino que también tengan otras metas. UTEP HEP serves 7 students annually for Farm West Texas and Southern New Mexico. Anualmente, nuestro programa da servicio a 70 estudiantes en el área oeste de Texas y el sur de Nuevo México. Áreas como Deming, Pecos, Hatch, Presidio, Columbus y muchas más. Okay, we have the requirements to qualify in our program are having worked 75 days in the last 24 months in agricultural work or being a direct family member of the worker. Being eligible to participate or have participated in the migrant education program or in the National Farm Worker Jobs Program. The third one, be 17 years of age or older. Please note that it is not upper age limit. Not be enrolled in a school or have a GED diploma or equivalent. Official ID, like a Texas or New Mexico ID, birth certificate, passport o matrícula consular. Los requisitos de elegibilidad para nuestro programa es haber trabajado en la agricultura por temporadas o temporalmente por lo menos 75 días en los últimos 2 años. Estos 75 días no deben de ser continuos, pueden ser un mes, una semana, pero que todos los 75 días estén dentro de los 2 años. Haber participado en el programa de educación migrante o en el programa nacional de trabajadores agrícolas, tener 17 años o más, no haber obtenido el diploma de high school o su equivalente, no estar inscrito en la escuela y tener una identificación válida. Puede ser algún ID de Texas o Nuevo México, acta de nacimiento, un pasaporte o la matrícula consular. We provide the following services. Classroom instruction in English and Spanish. We offer face-to-face and online classes via Zoom. We provide textbooks, school supplies, tutoring after class. We pay for the exams. We provide housing and campus, meals for the students who live in the dorms, transportation, educational cultural activities, bi-weekly stipend, computer loan program if the student needed. Once they obtain their diploma, we organize a nice graduation ceremony with a cap and gown. Los servicios que ofrecemos durante cuando nuestro estudiante está aquí estudiando el GED es instrucción académica, tanto en inglés como en español, libros de texto, útiles escolares, o aquí me faltó decir que nuestra instrucción académica, antes del COVID ya estábamos pensando en hacerla online. Entonces ya con COVID pues tuvimos que, como que nos aceleró este proceso. Entonces damos clases en persona y online también, o híbrido, que pueden ser cualquiera de los dos. También les proporcionamos libros de texto, útiles escolares, tutoría después de clase, asistencia financiera para el pago de exámenes, clases de inglés, dormitorios en el campus de la universidad, comidas cuando viven aquí en los dormitorios, se les da las 3 comidas diarias, fichas para el camión de la ciudad para aquellos estudiantes que van y vienen para tomar sus clases. Se les lleva actividades culturales y educativas. Como les mencionaba, esto les ayuda a que nuestros estudiantes participen y vivan la experiencia universitaria y con estudiantes universitarios. También se les ofrece un estipendio quincenal, préstamo de computadoras para aquellos que toman clases en línea y necesiten la computadora. Y por último, la ceremonia de graduación. We also have a career orientation class, learning style inventory, time management skills, career interns profile, guest speaker from partners agency, college prep like college tours, assisting with college admission, assisting with FAFSA, and financial support. También tenemos en nuestro programa clases de orientación vocacional, donde nuestros estudiantes conocen el estilo de aprendizaje individual, habilidades para el manejo de tiempo, se les da el perfil de interés de carrera, presentaciones de diferentes agencias que trabajan con nosotros y también se les da una preparación para el colegio, como se les lleva visitas a campus universitarios, asistencia con la solicitud de admisión, asistencia con el llenado de FAFSA y apoyo financiero para el examen de admisión. We also provide employment assistance, resume preparation, job fairs, mock interviews, complete job application, presentation on military careers, and financial literacy education. También se les ofrece asistencia laboral con la preparación de resume, se les lleva a ferias de trabajo, práctica para entrevistas laborales, asistencia en el llenado de aplicaciones de trabajo y también se les presenta sobre carreras militares y educación financiera. Lastly, I want to share a little about the event we did for our graduation last year, since we could not have our ceremony due to COVID. So the entire UTEP program, along with teachers and staff, visited our graduates, brought them their certificate, and our RA students made this poster with the photos. Por último, quiero compartir con ustedes, no sé si hablé muy rápido, sé que teníamos poquito tiempo, entonces quiero compartir con ustedes el póster que hicimos del año pasado de nuestra graduación, ya que no pudimos realizar la ceremonia presencial debido a COVID. Entonces lo que hicimos fue que el personal del programa, tanto maestros como de oficina, visitamos a los estudiantes y les llevamos la graduación a casa. Entonces se les hizo un reconocimiento con la foto de ellos de graduado y el certificado de GED. Nos tomamos fotos con ellos como equipo muy orgulloso y nuestros estudiantes residenciales hicieron este póster para nosotros. Okay, so this is my information, my email and phone number. If you have any questions, you can feel free to raise it. Aquí les doy ya nada más mi información, mi nombre, correo electrónico, teléfono, mi celular también, por si tienen alguna pregunta, pues se pueden comunicar con nosotros. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Maribel. I know we're almost up at the end of our time here. There's a couple of questions, I mean, more than a couple, but there's several questions. We're going to try to answer them as quickly as we can. So I'm going to just pose these out there. Felipe, I don't know if you want to answer some of these. So one person said they're curious about minimum wage and how it applies to piecework. In other words, compensation per bushel of chile.
Yeah, there is exceptions in the minimum wage laws for people who make piecework, what that essentially means is that certain people who get paid in piecework fashion don't actually have the right to minimum wage. However, we read those exemptions to be very, very narrow. in most instances, even when someone's getting paid by the piecework, they should still make the minimum wage. Now, how does that happen? The person has to do a little math at the end of the week. Combine all of your wages, divide it by your hours, and you should come out to the minimum wage, which is currently $11.50. If you do not come out to the minimum wage after doing that simple equation, then you have the right and your employer has the obligation to give you the difference to get you to $11.50 per hour. So in very limited circumstances, some farm workers who get piece rate don't have the right to minimum wage, but in most circumstances, what those farm workers have to do is divide their wages by their hours, and they should come out to $11.50 an hour. If they don't, the employer should pay them the difference.
Terrific. Here's another question. Does New Mexico have OSHA inspectors who visit fields to enforce field sanitation regulations?
Ismael might be able to jump in a little bit here with me, but we do have OSHA, our own OSHA office. Some states choose to allow national OSHA because OSHA is a system where both state and the federal government kind of manage the system. We have our own state office. And so that means that we do have our own state investigators. And there is information on the Department of Environment's website about OSHA. You can always contact that department and ask for an inspection if you feel like there's something going on at a farm that you think is putting workers' health and or safety at risk.
Okay, we're going to do one more question before we have to bring this to a close. And that is, farm owners frequently engage in the practice of hiring seasonal free labor under the guise of internships or apprenticeship programs. What protections, if any, are in place for farm workers who are hired as interns or apprentices?
Ismael, I don't know if you have a little more information about that. My understanding is that that should be something very limited, and that farmers shouldn't be hiring people for free work. In most instances, individuals that are working should be paid the minimum wage. There are some laws that allow for apprenticeships and internships. My understanding is that those are pretty limited, and most of these individuals that are hired in that fashion are actually not being paid what they should be paid.
Yes, just to add on, that is really fact specific. So I would encourage whoever is affected by that to contact Felipe or myself, and we can address that more appropriately. I can tell you from personal experience that I actually have volunteered. I have a friend of mine who's a rancher, and he's a bale hay. And so on the weekend, I would help him do it without charge, help him buck hay. But again, those are the exceptions, not the rule.
All right, we have many more questions, but unfortunately, I think we've run out of time. And just to keep on people's schedules, I'm going to draw this to a close. I want to thank again all of the members of the New Mexico Coalition for Agricultural Workers and Advocates for spending the time today with us and giving us their expertise. It's been very informative. I also want to let folks know that we have an ongoing presentation. So for those of you that are attending the RFSP quarterly meeting, you can use your New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association meeting link to return to that session. Everyone else here, thank you so much for your help. There will be a link, and the handouts that the presenters presented with today will be sent to all of those of you who pre-registered. And so we will be seeing that in your inbox very soon. Again, thanks to everyone for your support on this, and have a great rest of your day.